So very recently, Channel 4 have aired a behind-the-scenes exclusive documentary that details the journey of Jay Slater's family following his disappearance until this current day. So in this video, we are going to uncover some of the details that the show brought to light. We're going to speak about how the documentary showed the inquest and gave the official results as to how Jay Slater passed away. And if you stick around, we're also going to go through some of the questions that we still have that the documentary failed to answer.
We now ask you, please, Jay, rest in eternal peace.
But before we get into the episode, what I do want to just very quickly say is that this documentary brought to life how impactful social media and these sort of types of commentary videos can actually make. So we'll promise you one thing. We will always be respectful to the families, the victims, and all of their friends that are around this case. We do that in every video we possibly talk about with any true crime case that we cover. And also, all of the information that we use is the information that is publicly available. We don't always have access to all of the inquiries, all of the court records and that sort of thing. So we'll only be referring to that type of information, and we're going to do our best to tell the truth. And that's what we're going to get into.
Exactly. I think that the main thing we want to do is present you guys with the information. Once again, like, this has been one that's been heavily requested to us from the members of the channel and from the subscribers of the channel since people kind of caught wind that this documentary was coming out, which was around a month ago, you know. And one of the main things was we had seen a few early sort of access clips from the documentary, and we knew that the documentary would focus quite a lot around the social media element of it. So one of the things that I was probably not most surprised at in the documentary, but definitely was surprised at, if I'm being completely transparent with you, Josh, is the fact that we weren't in it.
Well, there you go. We've done some of the most popular videos, and we're just saying it. Some of the most popular videos on YouTube about us.
We did it off an account yesterday that's not signed into either of our YouTubes, that has no affiliation with it. If you type Jay Slater into YouTube, I think the top video that comes up at the moment is the Channel 4 documentary.
Yeah, then there's some Sky News stuff.
I think there's a Sky News one, and then one below that is one of our videos that we did on it. However, the fact that we then didn't feature in the documentary was actually quite comforting for me, because the first and initial thing that I would say that I felt from the documentary was a huge feeling of sympathy towards the family of Jay Slater. It's not nice, it's horrible seeing that. And then obviously the fact that the internet side of things did affect them, that you know, online, they were speaking about it in terms of like online sleuths, conspiracy theorists and whatnot. I think that the documentary was very careful in what bits they put in and what bits they didn't put in. But ultimately, if you look back at both of our videos over the Jay Slater situation and obviously, you know, the death of Jay Slater, if you look back at both of them, which will be linked in the description here, you will see that I think we had a very different approach, would you say, to some of the guys that were featured in the documentary, and people that me and you ourselves, you know, might not have known by name. Some we did. We had digested some of their content and seen some of it, whether we, you know, did so believing what they were saying was true, right or wrong.
And this is the thing, like, it's what we're talking about ultimately is the death of a young lad, you know, in a country, you know, that was in the UK, and what has come at the back of that is a storm of content and conspiracy. And to go to what you were just saying, I feel like there's often sort of rabbit holes down the internet, whether it's TikTok, whether it's on YouTube, whatever social platforms they are, that are based on things that don't have a backing in evidence. And a lack of evidence doesn't necessarily mean evidence of something, right? That's what I'm just going to say now. And by the way, Joey and I, we didn't agree in a lot of the videos, right? And I do think sometimes that's our strength, in that either of us can put our point of view based on what we believe is true, and then we can critique each other. And ultimately, what that then kind of leads to is more towards the truth, or what we perceive to be the truth. And I think what I was really happy with this documentary is it for me, and we'll get to this at the end of the video, but for me, it felt like, you know, it kind of drew the line over a lot of things. But I know for you, it actually opened up a lot of questions.
For me, it didn't. For me, it
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
really
which is
feel
interesting.
like that.
Yeah.
So
but that just shows how we're different, right,
Yeah.
with the way that we look at this case. So why don't we go on to some of the unanswered questions?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is to do it in sort of chronological order of the documentary. We're obviously reviewing it here. So the first thing and the first sort of major thing in the documentary, because obviously a lot of it is rightly so, you know, telling a bit about the Jay Slater, the Debbie Duncan, and Warren Slater, and his brother Zach, who I felt so sorry for as well. Like the Jay that they knew, a lot of it was telling the, you know, his childhood and stuff like that. It was around probably 20 minutes into the documentary where anything of any sort of substance came up. And the first was a text message that Debbie Duncan received upon landing in Tenerife. Now, I've actually paraphrased there and said text message. To be exact, it was a WhatsApp message that she received, wasn't it? Now, what did you think of that? Because in essence, someone had sent her a WhatsApp message saying something along the lines of, you're not going to see your son again. He owes us a lot of money.
Basically saying that he had passed away. This was very, very soon into the case. So Jay Slater's body hadn't been found.
This is on about day 2 of disappearance.
So again, this is very, very much before we'd even suspected that he might have passed away. I mean, at this point, bearing in mind it's 2 days into the story and the search, we're looking to find him. We're not necessarily expecting to find him passed away.
By the way, from when he went missing, right? Like, I frequent Tenerife. I'm in certain like groups and stuff, and certain like bars and stuff like that, like just to use their Wi-Fi, you'll have to like them on Facebook or something like that. So I'm a little bit in the loop sort of thing. So I knew on day 1 when he had gone missing, right? And I remember, ironically, not laughing to myself, but thinking like, this fella's on a sesh, mate. Like, he's on a bender. He's on a massive sesh right now.
He's run out of battery on his phone.
He's run out of battery on his phone.
Himself.
And people are putting up stuff on the internet about him going missing, but he's probably just in some apartment somewhere, talking about fights that he had in high school and in a kitchen somewhere and whatever. It was almost a bit like, they're going to find him. I think as the days go on, you start to realise, like, okay, no, like, this is really serious. Someone's missing. He may never come home.
Yeah.
The point we're trying to make is that at that point that Debbie Duncan receives, I said a text message, it was a WhatsApp, it's the same. At that point, right, they don't know it, that Jay is, you know, not with us anymore, that he's passed away. They don't know that, whoever's sending that, we assume, right? Even more so, how have they got a number?
So this is the thing. I actually tried to come up with my own theory on this, and again, make this very clear, because they didn't like this in the documentary about social media theories. But as you just said, news of his disappearance was spread on social media very, very quickly. I know for a fact that his friends had put it onto social media, bearing in mind the Snapchats. And also, let's be honest, mate, when you say something to a mate, you know, when you're that age, it very rarely ever stays between you. I've been there, done it. It happened in Snapchat back when I was a kid as well. People would talk to another friend. A secret became gossip very, very quickly. So my theory is that this gossip came out. It went through the friends of friends group. It grew and grew and grew. There were people that knew Jay in the area. Now, let's make this very clear. Jay had been in trouble, you know, within the recent years before he went to Tenerife.
He had people that disliked him.
He'd been in trouble. He'd been in a very serious incident in which, you know, he got punished for in court. And so I think there were people that disliked him, and therefore they would have been able to find his mum's number, because again, his mum is connected to him. It's a small circle. It's a small area. People know each other, and some little troll is trying to scare the mum. It's a sick act, but that's my theory on it. Do you have like another theory yourself of what this was?
Not really. I do think that when more sort of comes to light, it starts to stack up in definitely the very, very strange category. The fact that someone would want to do that, like if I go along with your version of events there, which you believe to be true, which is that it's an internet troll in essence, maybe someone that knows and dislikes Jay, maybe from the Tom Hilton incident or something like that. I understand someone could have sent that message. At the same time, it's the fact that, as far as we know, like we look at the pages that were set up, the GoFundMe, stuff like that, Debbie Duncan's number was never on there. It wasn't accessible. It wasn't available. Also, you would think that there would be some sort of way to track the message if it was a WhatsApp message. It just said from an unknown phone, you know. We've spoke recently about like Telegram and stuff like that. Discourse sort of messages.
Discord,
the Tyler Robinson case, and how it's a way to basically evade,
stay anonymous as much as one can do in the modern era. Yeah,
and this wasn't that. This was a WhatsApp message that came from a phone number. So it was probably the first thing that I found quite strange in the documentary. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think this is in the category of an unanswered question, in that they could have identified a phone number. We don't know who it is. Potentially that is in the court documents. Potentially the prosecutors know who that is, but we certainly don't at this stage. And it was a message that may have professed information that we didn't know at the public at the time, in that Jay had passed away. So that for me is an unanswered question. As I said, I've got a theory, but that doesn't necessarily mean that theory is correct.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing that is sweeter than a mid-show Joey Night compliment is our brand new channel partner, and you guys need to give them a huge amount of love because they look after us, and it's Holy. These legends make a beautiful alternative to conventional soft drinks and energy drinks as well. So yeah, we tried out Holy for the first time, and the best way to start off is with the starter set deluxe. You get 7 flavors of Holy Energy, 7 flavors of Holy Hydration, 7 flavors of Holy Iced Tea, and you guessed it, 7 flavors of Holy Milkshake. And my favorites within that set are the iced teas. Effectively what you do is you get the shaker, you whack 500 milliliters of water in that, and then just add the sachet to it, and you get a wonderful alternative to soft drinks. And my favorite so far is the acai and hibiscus. This effectively is a little bit like, almost like a blackcurrant tasting drink. It tastes absolutely beautiful. And yeah, these teas are high in vitamin C, and they're also enriched with fiber and antioxidants. And guess what? They don't have any added sugar either. But Joey, I know that you're in need of some energy at the moment, aren't you? So you've actually been having the Holy Energy.
Very much so, yeah. Sleepless nights with the baby, so it's been a lifesaver for me, actually. And the best part about Holy Energy is there's no sugar, no aspartame. They also have 21 calories per serving, so they're definitely diet friendly. And my favorite flavor so far is the apple alligator flavor. And in here, there's a special caffeine variant called New Caf, which releases energy over the course of 4 hours. And it's twinned with L-theanine, which when I did my research on, I found out helps give you the same sort of boost that the caffeine does, but helps you stay relaxed rather than having the sort of anxiety feeling that a coffee can give me sometimes.
So yeah, trust us, Holy tastes absolutely amazing, and it isn't going to hurt your guts as much as a soft drink would do. So try it now for yourself, and you'll be in good company because they've got over 4.6 on Trustpilot, and that's with over 100,000 reviews. Mad one. Just hit that link in the description, use code JOEYJOSH for 10% off, or you can use JOEYJOSH5 and you'll actually get £5 off your first order as well. Remember, that just has to be over $14.99. Huge thanks to Holy for sponsoring this part of the video. We thank them so much for being partners of the Joey and Josh channel. Now let's get back into the video.
The next thing that I would probably speak about as something that in the documentary did leave me with a few little questions was obviously there were a couple of different scenes that we'll speak about where both Debbie and Warren are unpackaging some of Jay's possessions. These possessions have been concealed, haven't they? And it definitely looks like that from the scenes where they're unpackaging them.
Yeah, they basically preserved them.
Yeah,
I think is what you're trying to say. Like at one stage, he looked like Warren looked like he was pulling stuff out of a freezer, but I don't think he actually was. I think he basically just vacuum sealed different items. And as Debbie said, she purposely has kept the bag that he had. God, I feel so sorry for her. She still wants to remember the smell of her son. Yeah. She still wants to sort of preserve that as much as you can do.
And the fact that, you know, saying like his clothes still smell of him, whatever. Yeah. She admitted that she hasn't unpacked his bag, so they've not been cleaned, anything like that. The same can be said as far as we're aware for the items of clothing that Warren showed and whatnot. But the first part in the documentary of this process of sort of uncovering some of Jay's possessions were when Debbie, his mother, actually first sort of activated his phone and switched it on. It shows her actually in Tenerife with the phone, where they had given it to her. And then when she turns it on, she logs into his Snapchat. This is after, obviously, you know, his body's been found, he's deceased, and that's when a Snapchat message goes through to Brad. Now, my first thing, right, and this is to the naked eye when I was watching it, and probably nursing a bit of a sore head from a hangover when I was watching the documentary, I didn't notice that much damage to the iPhone. Was that something that you picked up on at all? Or?
Do you know what? It's so funny how memory works, because I remember the phone being smashed up. So what I did is I took a screenshot of the phone, because I actually went back and watched the documentary, and we'll show you the screenshot now of the way it actually looks. Now, what's clear is that the phone hadn't been smashed up. Like, from what we've been told, falling from a height, a natural thing to say would be that a phone would be smashed up, you know, there'd be a clear breaking of the glass, etc., right? But what I would say is there was some damage on the phone.
There was some damage on the phone. If I'm honest with you, most of my friends' phones look like that.
Yeah, like you could have dropped it on a concrete, you could have dropped it out of your pocket, it hit the floor,
yeah,
it breaks the screen protector.
Well, all of my friends are in, more or less all of my friends are in like manual labour jobs and stuff, yeah? So a lot of them have like left it on the side at work, stuff like that, dropped it out of the pocket, climbing up a ladder, something like that. Most of my friends' phones look like that. So I would say that phone there looks more consistent with a phone of your average bloke who's maybe a tradesman or works on site or whatever, than a phone that we are told in the documentary was found on his person.
Can I just say the only thing, the caveat to this that I was thinking is, and I don't think anyone would know this, so it's a bit of a hypothetical question. Do you know that Jay often stored his phone in his pocket? Because my theory is that people refer to a backpack that Jay had. It wasn't a backpack, was it? It was a man bag. We call it a man bag, right? It was a over-the-shoulder bag in which later was recovered all of his possessions, right? My theory is, and I don't know if this is true or not, and you might be able to tell me otherwise, that the phone might have been in the bag.
No, the phone was in the bag.
There you go.
The phone was found on Jay. So what was revealed in the documentary was because it's always been kind of disputed about the height of which he fell from. It was approximately 20 to 25 meters, which if you go at the high end, that's 80 foot. 25 meters. That is a height to fall from.
It's about a 6-story building, I'd say.
Yeah.
So it's high.
Now, not only that, they also showed, obviously not on, you know, Jay himself or Jay's body, but what they showed was just the outline of a man and where their areas of impact and injury were. The most serious being the trauma to the head, which they, you know, believe was what ended Jay's life. However, there was significant damage to the left side of his body, they had said, which would be in line with a fall. And there was also significant damage, not as bad as the left side, but to the right side of his body. When you saw it on the person, there were a lot of lines of damage and arrows pointing to wounds and damages and that around where like your pockets would be and stuff like that. I do think that, and again, this isn't a conspiracy theory I'm throwing out there, but I do think that if I dropped my phone 25 meters, 80 foot, my iPhone, and it looked like that there, wow, I would be over the moon that it hadn't, because I've dropped my phone off the side of the table 4 foot up off the ground, it's smashed to pieces. But it's not an indication that the phone wasn't on him, is it?
It didn't, if I'm being completely honest, it didn't change my view of the series of events based on the damage of the phone. Because for me, there was some damage on the phone. We don't know whether this was caused before or after or during the incident. And so there are various scenarios in which the phone might not have broken, but more serious damage might have happened to Jay.
And you said to me, well, what if it was in the bag? So do you think that I think it was like it would have been fake, but it would have been like a leather Louis Vuitton bag or something, right?
That's exactly it.
Do you think that would have enough protection, that leather bag, to have kept the plastic aftershave sort of perfume bottle he had intact? Because that was intact, the lighters were intact.
I think it's so difficult to do like a fluid dynamics test of whether it would break or not, to be honest with you. Like it's a very difficult thing to sort of look at the scene. And again, can I be completely honest, like you look at the documentary, there were quite clear images of the ravine and the area around the ravine, but you didn't necessarily see a path in which someone fell. You didn't get a full play-by-play of the sort of, this is the spot where he left the the ravine cliff, then he fell into the ravine, this is then what happened. You didn't get a clear path. So it's very difficult to say where he was, where the bag was, how it fell. Do you know what I mean? Like, I to be quite frank, I don't have the answer to that.
No.
And I don't think anyone does.
And they also didn't mention like footprints, a foot trail, things like that. Obviously, we saw that his shoes were found. Warren now has those shoes, concealed. And yeah, we didn't hear anything about a foot trail or anything like that. No. So it was quite interesting. One of the other things I would say that I did notice, and this is, to this point in the documentary, the only real red flag for me. It's that message that goes through when Debbie Duncan opens Jay's Snapchat, right? So clearly what had happened is the message had been sent by Jay, probably without any signal.
Yep.
It's then in, like, you would know better than me maybe, but like in a process of the message has been sent, but it's not able to deliver until that phone's activated again. Once the phone's activated, it comes through. The message, we'll show it on screen, but it's listen with a comma and a capital L, by the way. I'm not going to make it. I understand that the first thing that a lot of people will do is point out to me that the autopsy and whatnot showed, the toxicology, that Jay had substances within his system and stuff like that. One thing that I feel is very apparent is that there's a clear change of grammar and in the way that Jay is writing than hours before. Literally like 4 hours before. So when he is, if the Snapchats that were posted were Jay Slater, yeah, the grammar, the abbreviation of words, the use of things like apostrophes and commas and stuff like that or whatever, that's not there. That's not there. Like the Snapchats are very much what I would expect from a 19, 20-year-old kid to be, how they text and how they articulate themselves. Whereas that final Snapchat was not
so you've got to explain this, because being completely honest, when I looked at this, I didn't think too much about the grammar and it didn't seem too different from the Snapchats that you've been sending previously. So why do you think it's so different? Is it literally capitalization, comma, and turn of phrase? Is that?
Yeah, more or less just that. It just looks like someone else has written out that message to me. Like, and I'm not claiming that someone has, right?
It just
what I'm saying is if it's Jay that sent the Snapchats and if it's Jay that has sent the final message to Brad, then we can agree, yes, we can definitely agree that the wording, the grammar, the use of grammar, everything like that is completely different from the Snapchats to that final one. Would you agree on that?
I don't find it materially different personally, no. I don't. Can I be completely... I don't.
Listen, I've been young, going raving, stuff like that, whatever, yeah? Might take you a little bit longer to write out a text. The way you speak doesn't really change. So when you're writing messages the night before saying, just took an AP with off some CUNT now with 2 Marley kids, blah blah blah, like you're abbreviating everything, things like that. And then the final one is listen, comma, I'm not going to make it. Even like going to, you'd think you'd write gonna, you know what I mean? Like, and if those Snapchats were sent, that's all I'm saying. I think there's a very direct change of grammar there.
Can I give my theory?
That's weird. And let me just finish the final point of it. He fell to his death, yeah? So how did he know he wasn't going to make it?
I suppose my hypothesis, bearing in mind, we shouldn't necessarily do these things. I find putting out theories without evidence very difficult to say. But what I would say, right, is I'm not going to make it can mean different things in different contexts. If they had planned something that day, I'm not going to make it means I'm not going to be there at the event, right? I'm not saying that's what he meant, but I'm just saying context is everything, isn't it? And without knowing every single thing that they had said in conversation, which you probably know more than me, it can mean different things. He could also be getting to the point where dehydration, the come down, everything is hitting at that point, and I'm not going to make it. Again, you know what it's like when you're not feeling very well, you over dramatize things, We've used terminology that we probably shouldn't do to describe how we're feeling. And so maybe that's what he was doing at that point. And then in terms of the grammar, an explanation for me, not saying this is true, but an explanation could be for me. We've all done it. We've used the automatic grammar thing on iPhone. It can change what you mean. You can type words. You can use correct grammar in a way that you would never otherwise do, because quite frankly, the words populate on your screen. You just press the buttons and it seems completely different. But the reason why is it's provided by an AI, by iPhone, So If I was guessing to try and find an explanation to the problem, that's what it would be. But I still think it is an unanswered question, and I don't know if it ever will be answered. To be fair,
I just found it a very, very strange one. I do find it a strange one. So what you're then, by that logic, what you're saying is that you would agree that Jay made a mistake in sending the message he sent, which would ultimately be the last final message.
Why would it have been a mistake?
It would have been a mistake because there would have been a way more sensible message to send, wouldn't there?
Where he is.
Send your location. I'll be here.
I feel like did he not? He did send his location though. Maybe not at that exact moment, but soon
not
enough.
at that exact moment. And actually, his body was found a little bit off from where he had sent that location.
I personally think what may have happened in this situation is he tries to send a message, the phone dies, because you know what happens when your phone dies, like it goes off unexpectedly, you can't plan it, and maybe the next move was going to be to send his location, and he just didn't.
What did you think about the fact that although we didn't actually obviously see Jay's body, we saw the autopsy being carried out on camera? Thought it was very unique, this documentary, in terms of like when they say, you know, behind the scenes, this really was behind the scenes.
Can I just say though, I think in terms of the context of this documentary, bearing in mind the social media, the coverage, I've seen videos where people don't believe that it's actually Jay. I've seen videos of people questioning the validity of reports, the competence of pathologists, the competence of police. Perhaps there was a decision made by the documentarians that said it would be a good thing to not show the autopsy, but prove that there was a body there.
By the way, like it's undeniable that it's Jay's body.
I think it's undeniable, but there's been plenty of content that
but that's the sort of stuff that does make it into these fucking documentaries.
But that's my point.
Look, I'm questioning something here, but at least we're talking with sense. Like, you know, when people are saying that, I see one on there that was like, that's some Spanish person's body, that's whatever. Jay got arrested and got charged. So anyone that's been arrested and charged will know that you've had fingerprints and you've had swabs taken.
This, I have to say, another point in the documentary that really annoyed me was the people going, oh, they haven't got his fingerprints. There's no way they could have got his fingerprints. Like they're medical experts and being able to know whether decomposition rate. These people have no idea about decomposition rates. And I'm really glad the pathologist took the time to explain how that worked and explain very clearly and show it how they actually, you know, showed the palm prints. I thought that was very interesting, and I'm glad they talked about it. And this is the thing, the pathologist speaking out and actually featuring in the documentary, I was grateful for, was they were very clear, they were very intelligent, and they explained exactly what their findings were, and I appreciated that.
You know what the annoying thing about it was, though? At the time of the documentary being aired, we still haven't, that autopsy you saw carried out is a second autopsy. Right? Anyone who's like, you know, religiously follows true crime cases will know that each autopsy is less effective.
It affects the previous, the preceding findings.
There you go. There you go. Each time you do an autopsy.
Because there was what we should say is that there was a Spanish autopsy in which we don't have the reports.
We don't have it.
And the British pathologist took a little dig at the Spanish authorities and said they are often slow to provide reports, which was you know, fair enough, interesting in itself.
Because you look at, you know, and we'll get onto it, they were very, very slow to provide the reports of the autopsy, but the toxicology reports were leaked very quickly.
Yeah.
Which should we quickly speak about this now?
Yeah, so what did they have to gain about leaking those toxicology reports? Is it painting a picture of a boy that I don't even know.
I don't know. I think so to give context, the documentary showed that private toxicology reports that were literally not available had been leaked, and they said, you know, they were stating in the documentary, these are not our accusations, they were said, how did they describe it, had been fraudulently leaked, didn't they?
They basically said without consent of the authorities, which obviously they would say, but, you know, let's take them for their word, that it was released to the public. And obviously we actually discussed this, didn't we? In our, I think our first episodes, we discussed the Spanish pathologist's findings. And obviously we saw the toxicology report at that point. And that's the reason why we have to talk very carefully about what we say about the substances now, because we know we can't actually mention the names of them. But yes, there were substances found in that report which I believe were directly refuted and found to be exactly the same in the British pathologist's report as well. So yeah, we know for sure that there were substances in Jay's system at the time of death, and that there were various sources of substances.
The autopsy that was carried out in England, I was very much trying to listen to the way that the guy carrying it out was speaking and whatnot. And obviously, like, listen, this is a bit grim. I said that we didn't see Jay's body. We did see Jay's flesh in a jar.
It was his liver, wasn't it?
In the thing, a bit of the liver they took.
Yeah, that's for the toxicology report. I feel that they, the documentary...
Do you think they needed to do that?
I feel that they did it in a subtle way, and they showed an organ rather than showing the flesh, the skin of Jay. So I feel like it was, I'm not going to use the word tasteful, but it was subtle. It was as subtle as it could have been.
At the same time as that, though, it really like brings something to life. Like, we've covered this case. This is our third and final episode that we'll be doing about it, but we've covered this case while it's been ongoing, and obviously when it's come to a conclusion. And yeah, like, to see it really makes you think, like, in hell, like, we've been talking about this, but this is
the thing that brought it home for me more than anything. Like, I think we've watched so much content around this, and we've had to listen to the conspiracies, and we've had to listen and research a lot of things, which I have to be honest with you, in a case like this, I wouldn't always research the conspiratorial side of these sort of things. And I agree with you. It was this moment in which it really brought to home that this was a real person, a boy that was loved by his family, by his friends, everyone around him. And it makes you think, you know, when we're making these videos about, you know, the people behind it. And it was a tough moment for sure, especially when they are showing it so viscerally.
And the man that did show it and was carrying out the autopsy said that there was a massive skull fracture on the left side of Jay's head, which he believed was what killed him, and which would have led to instant unconsciousness.
Did you see the
death.
MRI or the CT scan that they showed from that? I mean, to say that there was a fracture, I mean, before I saw that image, I'm thinking a fracture being a skull break. You know, we've seen it lots of times, people fracture their skulls, whereas this was a complete shattering of the skull. I mean, it would have definitely caused unconsciousness, and it was a very significant injury.
Did you notice when he was talking about the injuries? Again, I could be reading between the lines and overlooking at something that's not there, but did you notice he said, however they were caused, these would have led to instant unconsciousness and instant death. The fact he said, however they were caused.
Again, when you're dealing in these terms, and bear in mind that for context, the pathologists often have to go and speak in court, and so they have to use language and terminology that is sufficient in a courtroom setting. Before, what he was saying is, obviously what I can't prove with evidence is whether someone was pushed, whether someone had any other sort of, you know, third party involvement before this. And so whatever caused it, this is the injury that led to Jay's passing away, right? And so, to be honest with you, that turn of phrase didn't concern me, bearing in mind that context. But you might feel differently.
No, I don't necessarily think I do. I mean, he did also mention, like, if he was pushed, I wouldn't be able to see that on a autopsy because it wouldn't have left an injury and whatever. So I think that the guy carrying out the autopsy, I think, is open to understanding that although we've got a clear indication on what happened, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that there could have been third party involvement, something like that. I feel like that alluded to it.
He can't rule it out. And like I say, lack of evidence doesn't mean evidence, but you can't rule something out.
Okay.
And again, he's a man that is bound by court, and he has to speak in a certain way.
Okay, so now let's get on to something that I did find really, really strange, I want to say. At the same time, again, I don't want to fuel conspiracy theories and whatever, but I did find it a little bit weird that obviously when Warren shows the clothes that Jay was wearing, they were vacuum packed, basically. They were sealed up. But the thing with it was that going on the state of the clothing, you would assume that these clothes haven't been washed. And if they 100%.
Have, he said that.
Yeah. And he said that, right? I'm going to put it out there, mate. There was no blood on the T-shirt. There was no blood on the trainers. Where was the blood?
This is the thing. I don't know the answer to that.
Because there was dirt.
There was dirt.
There was a lot of dirt on it.
And this is the thing, like I was about to say, that dirt could have been a blood stain, but I don't know the answer to that. Let's be honest, if you're falling off a ravine, you're going to get dirty.
It didn't look
like
a blood stain.
No, it didn't look like blood.
Now, to give it a bit of context, I've been in and around boxing gyms and whatever for the past decade. I've also, unfortunately, seen people hit their head on the ground after getting knocked out in pubs and stuff like that.
Blood gets everywhere.
There's a lot of blood.
Yeah.
There's a lot of blood. I'm thinking of two times right now I've seen someone get knocked out, hit their head on the ground, and they're in a pool of blood. Like, there's a lot of blood, you know what I mean?
Yep. This is the thing, like, we don't have so there's two things. We don't have the microscopic or splatter evidence. It wasn't like he held the t-shirt up full to camera and you could do a full 180 and look at both sides and see any splattering of any kind. You couldn't. Quite frankly, it was placed on the floor. It was shown for 2 to 3 seconds, and so we're not going to be forensic experts in those conditions. So that's the first point. The second point is we also don't know what direction the body was laying. So, for example, falls off, hits his head. Head is facing towards a slope. The blood trickles away from the body. That's just one hypothesis. Like, we don't know the answers to those questions, but I can completely understand why there is a question why there isn't blood on it. Especially bearing in mind there was, as we heard, scratches on the body and marks in which he was falling.
Which you'd think when they said like significant damage to the left side of the body, you'd think maybe the t-shirt would be all ripped up, stuff like that, but obviously it wasn't. So it starts to, for the people that are doubtful, I can see where they would start to build an image here of going, hold on, well, the iPhone's not really smashed up, the lighters and the perfume are intact, there's not blood on the t-shirt and whatever. This isn't my belief, by the way, but what I'm saying here is I can see why more will come out of this.
To respond directly to those people though, when you look at that CT scan of his skull, and bearing in mind none of these people have seen the autopsy pictures or anything like that, when you see that CT scan, it becomes very visceral very quickly how injured he was. So irregardless of blood spattering or phone damage, Jay was significantly hurt by that fall.
Can I give you the main thing that I'm seeing online, and I'm actually having people message and stuff since the documentary, is that a lot of people are saying that the documentary didn't, in their opinion, prove it was necessarily, a rock or something that broke Jay's fall, and that was how, he passed away. And it didn't rule out that, he could have been hit with a blunt object to the back of the head or something like that, left-hand side of the head prior, and then pushed off. And the documentary, to be fair, like, look, I'm not trying to take away responsibility for myself. We're speaking about it now. We've had it requested. We're going to speak about it. But the documentary, to be fair, did pour a little bit of fuel on that by including the clip of the guy saying, like, I can't rule out that he was pushed. If you can't rule out that he was pushed, you maybe can't rule out, he hadn't been struck with a blunt object or something like that to the back of the head either. Because, and the reason I say this is he did mention about the fact that would have not only broke his fall, but, instantly killed him or whatever. You would think that if it did, then the body would stay in that position where it was, and then you would think that unless it was a rock that he potentially hit on the way down, that you would be able to say, well, actually, and this is probably stupid man's logic, right? Like a jigsaw piece, you can fit that in there and distinctively say, yes, that is where he hit his head.
Two things. I think by the end of the documentary, the family had seen enough evidence based on the inquiry that they attended, and we're jumping the gun a little bit here, but stick with me, that they had enough evidence to say that they found the answers they needed to find, and they had a solution to what happened.
I don't agree with you. I don't agree with you at all. And this is the thing for me with it, right? Unless they kept the same outfits and stuff like that, and were really meticulous in terms of positioning of the table that they were each sat at when they were speaking, I would say that the specific interviews that I'm about to speak of now, obviously the documentary followed the family a lot, but there were specific cutaways that they kept coming back to. One was an interview with Debbie that was clearly conducted at sort of like a kitchen table, and the other one was a separate one with Warren on his own. And this is when Warren, and we have to be careful again for reasons on YouTube, we have to be careful how we word this again. Basically, Warren suggests that he would love to be able to inject, let's call it truth syrup, basically into Ayub and Rocky, who were the two guys that Jay was back at the Airbnb with that night. He also suggests that he would love them to take lie detector tests.
Looking back on this now and skipping ahead to the end of the documentary, I feel like after the results of the inquiry, we see an interview with Warren, and Warren uses the words in which he says, I am satisfied. Now I've got, a full picture after this inquiry. I am satisfied, with the results of that inquiry. So for me, at least for the family's sake, and this is the best thing to come out of the documentary, it feels like there is some form of putting this to bed now and being able to rest now, knowing maybe not 100% of what happened, but at least the majority of the events that led to Jay's passing.
Listen, you can never put yourself inside the mind of another man, especially not a man who's been through something that you would not wish upon your worst enemy. It's every dad's worst nightmare, and you can do nothing but sympathize with the family. At the same time as that, I think that two things can coexist at once. Warren can be satisfied with the outcome and the closure element of it, but no, I don't think that he is less suspicious of Ayub. I don't think that he made those comments earlier on in the documentary for no reason. I also think, or know, as much as he don't like it, and I'm sure if this video ends up doing really well, he'll bring it up in another live stream or whatever. Ayub knows that Ayub's been dishonest. Do you know what I mean? And it's been proven that Ayub's been dishonest. And this isn't a conspiracy type thing. If you look in the documentary, Debbie Duncan reads out a part from Ayub's initial statement to Spanish police, obviously the police that police Tenerife, and in
Guardia
that
Civil.
Yep, and in that statement, he says that there was a fight over a watch. A watch was stolen off a Romanian-looking guy, and that it wasn't even real anyway. However, we've seen him go live on TikTok, on other social media platforms, where he's then saying that there wasn't a watch, and he's distancing himself at least from it, like in this clip here.
Bro, I don't know whose watch went missing. Furthermore, what watch is it? Question for you guys, because you're all talking about this watch. What colour is it? What type is it? Do you know what I'm saying? You tell me.
However, to be fair to Ayub, he did give evidence in court. He did appear in court via a video link, as did Lucy, because they weren't in the country. Brad obviously attended court. And as for Brandon, he didn't even appear via a video link. Again, Brandon was someone that wasn't spoken about in the documentary. Obviously, Brandon was the link between Jay and Ayub, wasn't it? So
I've correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like Brandon's name was mentioned in the documentary.
Brandon was mentioned in the documentary,
but as in
Brandon
in connection to Ayub. Is what you're saying. They weren't connected.
Yeah.
They
didn't mention that the connection is Brandon to Ayub, and that is, it's undeniable. That is the connection.
And that's is that therefore, in your mind, the reason why he was with Ayub that night and went to Masca? The connection between Brandon
I'd believe so, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember the reason why I'm asking that question is because in the first episode, we were saying... I felt that it was very random for him to have met these people, because I didn't know the full story here. I thought it was very random for him to have met Ayub and Rocky and travelled all that way to Masca. Basically, if he just met them on the strip and got chatting to someone, that didn't make sense to me. So if that's the case, then fair enough.
No, but if you potentially had a friend from back home who may or may not live out there or something, and then you've potentially got someone like Ayub who frequents that place and that Airbnb, by the way. I think even he's admitted, hasn't he, that he's stayed at that Airbnb before.
Yep. Fair enough.
One of the reasons why being Masca, I think it's a little bit weird. Ayub said actually in court, one thing I know for sure is that Jay didn't steal a watch. Posed the obvious question then, which was shown earlier on in the documentary when Debbie Duncan read out the initial police statement. Why did he tell the police in the day that followed, or whenever he gave his statement, that a watch was stolen?
Do you have an idea, a theory on why you think he did that then?
I've got no idea, but it doesn't add up, does it?
It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. And obviously we could theorize, but it's a weird thing. There's two things here. One, potentially pushing blame from himself towards another person. You could do that from an innocent position. You could do that from a guilty position. And also the second point is, how drunk was he? Did he truly remember the night? We've all had these things where we've recollected things. I mean, look, to be completely truthful to you guys, I don't drink. I've been out with a lot of people that have gone on a night out, got absolutely smashed. They remember things that didn't happen. They say things that did happen, and they get their order of events wrong. They get a lot of different things wrong. So that's the only caveat that I would say to that.
It's quite important in a case like this, though, to not flip-flap on something as significant as that.
It's very important, and that's why my gut is saying to me it's probably theory one, that he wanted to paint a picture of Jay in which Jay was a worse character than him, so that he wasn't questioned and, you know, detained. Bearing in mind he had already spent time in jail,
and obviously
that's just a theory.
Jay's dad Warren showed a lot of like desire to know, like, why would Jay be there with these guys, like whatever. I think he even mentions Ayub's past himself in the documentary, correct me if I'm wrong. But Brad obviously was a good friend of Jay's, flew to Tenerife with Jay, and he was asked in court, did Jay seem like he was in fear? To which Brad simply replied, no. You could maybe say that on some level, this slightly contradicts what Lucy said, in terms of when she told Jay to go back to where you were, she said that Jay said, I can't go back there, I can't go back there. That was what she said.
Yeah, for me, that's just, again, a linguistic thing, i.e. I'm walking around, I don't know where I am, I can't get back there, versus being fearful, as in I can't go back there because I'm scared of going back there. This is the thing, and fucking hell, it made me think about how I text my own mates. Like, could you reread some of my text messages and go, God, that was weird? Do you know?
So just quickly, is there no part of you that in this inquest, in the inquiry and whatnot, would have liked, you know, to have had questions put to the likes of Lucy and Ayub in terms of, why did you lie about this and that?
I would, unfortunately, and we talked about this in our last episode. If you haven't watched it, by the way, this is a good time to say you should go and watch that as well. In the second episode we actually defined the roles of the inquiry. And the inquiry is only a pathologist's inquiry to determine the cause of death, which they did. But it doesn't, therefore, require any criminality or charges on other people. No. And so, therefore, it is it's not necessary for the inquiry to ask those questions. Okay. Would I have liked the answer to those questions? Yes, but it's not part of this case.
But ultimately, the family was seeking the truth of what happened to Jay. So I do still think it's relevant to ask. We're not going to, I'm not grass, mate. I'm not going to say on a podcast. I think we all know why. Do you know what I mean? Like, but ultimately, to say, like, why did you want to distance yourself from them? Like, why did you pretend you didn't know them? You know, quotes from Lucy saying, like, two guys, blah, blah, blah. No, you would have just said people's names. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I think anyway. It's one of those ones where, like you say, it wasn't their job to do that and to ask that. No. Maybe that's for the family. Do you feel like, when we're looking back at the fact that Warren said if Jay had have been frightened, if Jay had have been scared, he would have let one of his friends know. Obviously, the thing that we're ignoring here, we will never truly know what was said during the phone calls that Jay made. That's undeniable. Yep. We can only have evidence of what was said over the text messages. We will never truly know. Now, Ayub, in a live stream, has said before, and I'll paraphrase here, but he said before that Jay rung one of his mates, right? We know that is Brandon, also known as Hodgie. Now, Ayub did not say his name. Obviously, Ayub wanted to keep him out of the limelight or whatever. Brandon obviously himself clearly wanted to keep out the limelight, hence why he didn't, you know, even via video link attend the inquest. They did try to locate, they had said in the documentary, everyone that didn't attend or whatever. Do you not think that now we've seen the call log and we've seen that there was not only calls to Lucy and Brad, Jay was making calls to Brandon as well, Brandon being the connection between the two? Again, it's hypothetical, but there is a chance that if, you know, in that call, Jay could have said, you know, there's a reason why I haven't gone back there and whatnot. Brandon could have that information. For all we know, Brandon could have had private chats with Debbie and Warren behind closed doors, and they could be satisfied with that. But that is something that opens up a little bit of a can of worms for the viewers that will be going through this documentary with a fine-tooth and comb and trying to look for inconsistencies in the story. Yeah,
100%. Like, again, this is the thing. Unanswered questions, for me, about this don't necessarily require or don't necessarily mean that something has happened nefarious about those particular people. As you say, it might have been settled outside of court. Also, to clarify, the inquiry was voluntary in the first instance. That the only reason why people would be compelled to go there would be if the court ordered them to be there, right? In terms of giving evidence. You would think, as a friend, right, someone that he deemed to be very, very close to, that he would want to be there at the inquiry. So for me, that does raise questions, because fuck me, if my mates weren't at an inquiry about my death, I'd be, you know, you'd go, why, you know, and your family
made no sense.
Your family would do it. So,
but
it is
just to say, you know, there'll be people in the comment section that might suggest he doesn't live in the country. Lucy and Ayub both appeared via video link. So
so he could have easily zoomed in. Yeah. So no, that's a weird part for sure. So if that's pretty much it, we come to the end of the documentary now, haven't we? Really. So if that's pretty much it, what do you think actually happened to Jay then? What's your final point to say on the case?
My final thing would be that I do still come away from it undetermined. I would lean now towards the conclusion that he fell. I have to say that I think it's very much undetermined, and I don't necessarily think that, unless, which is completely possible by the way, there are conversations that have gone on behind closed doors that didn't make it into the documentary, or no one felt needed to be said in the documentary. I do feel like the circumstances in which led to Jay falling to his death have not been explained at all. Do I necessarily believe that Jay left the Airbnb, okay, I'll walk uphill instead of downhill, and then I'll go off track and walk through the really, really rough terrain up in the mountains there? Do I believe that I have enough evidence to go, yes, this man was confused, he wanted to head towards the sea? Sorry, that's just my opinion. No, sorry. But do I believe that the outcome of Jay Slater's death could have had no third party involvement? Yeah, I could lean towards that. What I would say is this, right? From everything we know from the accounts, Rocky was asleep the whole time. Yeah. Like, from all the accounts, Rocky, who was the other guy that was in there with Ayub, the reason why we haven't really spoke as much about him is because I've always said, in terms of significance to the case, I've always said that I feel like he holds the least, because we do have video evidence, which I do believe, that shows that he's asleep. Every account is that he was asleep. Do you know what I mean? And that's that. So for what someone did or didn't know when they were asleep, like, I can't really speak on it, and I do believe that account. In terms of Ayub's story, I can't tell you whether I can wholeheartedly believe it, because we're not suggesting. I do feel like we've proven, and the documentary proved, that he did give conflicting statements. You've given your theory around why that can happen, you know, substance consumption and whatever, but the fact of the matter is he did, and if you did, then I'm always going to be a little bit suspicious of you. So I don't think that the documentary cleared up what the reason for Jay going off path was. And I think that the suggestion that, you know, if he had been scared, he would have told his mates, I don't think that there's enough concrete evidence there for me to say, well, he couldn't have potentially told mates. As I say, Ayub has said on a live stream before that he texted Brandon Hodgson, saying, you know, what are these guys like? Are they all right? So that says to me that if Ayub is in that statement that he made, telling the truth, and I am paraphrasing there, but that is pretty much what he said. If in that statement he made he's telling the truth, then it suggests to me that maybe Jay was fearful. So
to summarise your beliefs, because I think I just want to make this clear, do you feel that Jay's death was accidental?
I feel like the evidence leans towards Jay's death being accidental.
But he may have been fearful for a threat which could have been material or immaterial, you know, true or not true. And that's the reason why he may have, you know, made the decisions in which he made that day.
Yes, I believe that.
That's fair.
I believe that he probably felt threatened in the moment. I believe that's why he went off-road. And I believe that that could have been a legit reason for feeling threatened, or it could have been paranoia brought on by substance abuse and dehydration and whatnot else. What about yourself?
Fair enough. I think my sort of, I suppose, rationale hasn't changed too much, and I feel that the inquiry has kind of backed up what I've said all along, in that I do feel like it was an accidental death. Jay made a decision to walk a certain way, maybe by mistake, or maybe he did it for a particular reason. My assertion is that he took a wrong turn. He went the wrong way. He shouldn't have gone the way he went. He went uphill rather than going downhill. He went off-road rather than sticking to the road. I don't know the reasons for it. He still made the mistake, and that's what led to him passing away. So I feel like everything that I've said all along, in that he fell off, a cliff into a ravine, and passed away as a result of that, with no third party involvement, i.e. someone pushing him, is kind of what's been revealed in the coroner's report. And so that's what I felt has kind of been the truth all along.
Fair play. Yeah. Ultimately, look, once again, we've not done a video now in a couple of months that hasn't been requested to us by our members. We're very, very grateful for our members. We take it very, very seriously. And the cases that our members suggest to us and request to us will often be the ones that are not only what we cover, but we'll try and find the ones, okay, this is in the most high demand. This is getting sent in to us constantly. And we had a lot of people saying, like, off the back of the first 2 episodes, where's the review of the documentary? Where's the review of the documentary? And that's why I think both me and you felt we were kind of obliged to cover it.
Yep.
But at the same time,
what's clear now is that we won't be covering it again.
We definitely won't be covering it again.
Yeah.
And not only that, we just hope we haven't upset. Like, I understand that I'm not naive enough to think that we probably haven't. We probably have. Do you know what I mean? We probably have upset in some way the family of Jay Slater by making this video. I think it would be naive not to. I also do take comfort in the fact that we weren't in the documentary. I think that one of the reasons why we weren't included in it is because our conscience, or at least I can speak for myself, my conscience can be quite clear in the fact that we've never made videos saying this definitely happened, this was the outcome, you need to look at this, this is whatever. We've kind of presented the facts and then let people make their own mind up.
And also debate it where there hasn't been facts as well.
Yeah.
Like, I actually look at different scenarios. And I think more than anything, right, what I want to say here, and we said it at the start, but I want to just reiterate it. This is a real person that has had a tragic accident. Yeah. The family have been through the absolute ringer and waiting for near enough a month to find out what has happened to their son and their brother and their friends. And it's what this documentary showed more than anything is it was traumatic. It was horrible. It was a horrible month. And social media made that worse. And what I hope we've done is we cover this story in a sensitive way and in a way in which I could look at the family and go, I've presented the facts, and I hope we've done the best justice to the case that we possibly can. Mainly to find out the truth what happened to Jay, which is ultimately what they want. Especially
when you had creators that were comparing Debbie Duncan to Karen Matthews and things like that. Like, that's the part of it which joke. Really, when you watch the documentary, like, it's disgusting. It is really bad. And that's one thing, as I say, like, I do feel like I could look the family and the parents in the eye and know that that's never, ever something we've done. And that's never something that we would encourage anyone to do or whatnot. So listen, as I say, it's one that has been suggested to us from our members. Once again, if you do want to come, or become, I should say, one of our members, there is a link in the description for this video. It's your way of being able to put your own footprint on this channel. There is literally not a video that we have recorded for 2 months now that hasn't been heavily suggested or requested, I should say, from us by our beautiful members. So for less than the price of a cup of coffee, basically, in London, you can actually become a member. That is linked in the description. If not, please hit a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know, most importantly, what you want us to see covered next. And by the way, just before you go, if you want to watch another Jay Slater video, it will be linked as the top video right here, right now. So you can click that and watch that. That was our full summary of the case when we first covered it. And also, if you want to cover another missing persons case, there's also the story that we covered on Nicola Bulley as well. So those are 2 linked in the screen right now. On it right now, you can see it. And we will see you all in the next one.